Hello to everybody on the Facebook page. Happy Friday. Good evening. How are you all doing? Really, really lovely to be here. Really lovely to have you all on board with us. Hi, Paula. You're always one of the first ones on. It's always really lovely to have you with us, Paula. Thank you so much. Yeah, really looking forward to this evening. Can't wait. So I would, without further ado, I would like to introduce my guest this evening. This is going to be an action-packed, gosh, there are so many questions to get into this hour. And thank you so much, David, for your time.
Oh, my pleasure.
Fantastic.
Really, yeah. Thanks for asking me along. It's great.
more than welcome. Our absolute honour. So, David Ditchfield, author, spirit-inspired artist and composer, which all came about as a result of an NDE, which is a near-death experience. One of those tragic accidents, those one-of-a-kind things, it can't possibly happen to me. And then one day it does. And you visited a place that we are hopefully going to dive into and talk in a lot more detail about what you experienced during that time and the help that you had from the spirit world, and where you are now and how you're expressing the gift of life and the gift of being here. So, David, welcome. Would you like to start from the beginning and just kind of lead us through, if you're able to?
Yeah, sure. Just to outline, basically what happened was I had a really crazy accident that should have taken my life. I'd been seeing off a friend at the rail station, and as I helped her onto the carriage with her bags, the emergency closing doors were about to go. I heard the buzzers go. So I stepped back, and as I did, the bottom half of my coat got caught in the doors as they closed, and I couldn't pull it free. I tried everything. I tugged really hard. Nothing happened. I called for a guard, and there was no guard on the platform. So I just thought, this is it. I'm going to die, because I heard the engines revving up, and I looked into the eyes of my friend Anna, and I just saw the absolute look of terror in her face. And so I got pulled along the platform. I lost my footing, and eventually I got pulled at great speed, I should say, as well, between the space of the platform edge and the train itself. And I got sucked into felt like this very dark and violent machine. And I was tossed around from pillar to post, basically, and conscious throughout the whole ordeal. And I suddenly found myself then thrown down to the ground in between the rail tracks as the train was still continuing on. And it finally moved on, and then I suddenly lay there and thought, wow, I'm alive. And I couldn't believe that I was alive. So yes, the emergency services arrived really quick, and then they somehow got me off that track onto the platform and then into an ambulance. And when I arrived in the hospital, I remember, arriving in the A&E department, the emergency department, and there was a whole team of medics and all waiting for me in this big semicircle, and they all just started work on me straight away. And I could hear all this stuff, science and stuff, going over my head, and I was getting really quite worried, because I was concerned that they were basically trying to save me, and I didn't know what they were talking about. My family arrived at the hospital really quite quick. And when they got there, obviously everyone was really distraught, and I was really surprised how quick everyone had got there. And Anna, who I was seeing off at the rail station, she was there as well, and she was in complete shock. And I just wanted to talk to her, because we'd just been through something really, really horrific. And we talked for a while, and she was just shaking her head from side to side, saying, I can't believe you're alive, So it was pretty much at that point that I left that place. I left all that horrific sort of feeling of agony and pain and all the stress that was going on around me. And then I found myself in what I could only describe as being like a beautiful, darkened space. And I was no longer lay on the hospital trolley. There was no longer any noise around whatsoever. I was laid on what I can only describe as being like a huge slate rock. It was almost like a medieval altar, if you like. And it was strange, because I was no longer clothed, but I felt totally comfortable laid on this huge piece of slate. And I figured at that point that this was it, that I hadn't survived, and then I was dead. This was the next stage on, and I didn't panic at all. I didn't resist it. I didn't sort of want to go back. I wasn't trying to say, no, I don't want to die yet. I was fully accepting of the whole sensation of being there. I think a lot of it was to do with the fact that it was just so comforting, and I just felt brilliant. And I looked around, and the first thing I noticed were there were like these pulsating lights that were all kind of like were circling all around me very slowly, and they were just slowly pulsating, all these beautiful colors. Each one was an individual color of ambers and greens and yellows and reds, and I felt comforted by these glowing orbs. I laid back my head and just went with the flow, if you like. And I remember as I did lay back, I looked up, and what I then saw were 3 grids of white light that were just closing in on me slowly. And the grids were quite symmetric and in form, but the light that was coming from them was like a pure white light, and it was a light of energy that was basically was healing me. And I couldn't take my gaze out of that light because of the purity of it and the sensation that it was giving to me. But interestingly enough, being that bright, normally I wouldn't be able to look into that light. If it was electric or sunlight, it would be too much. But this I could do. And and as I lay there, I felt the presence of somebody close to me. I felt there's somebody with me now. So I looked, lifted my head and looked at my feet, and just ahead of my feet was this beautiful androgynous being, I'd say, neither male nor female in form, just stood there in a simple black sort of contemporary t-shirt, nothing too ethereal, and with this kind of pure white blonde hair and this skin that was just like radiating light from within, basically. And I felt that I'd known this being all of my life and beyond. It was like my soulmate, if you like. It's just and I remember saying, "Who are you? I know you, but I know your face." And this expression just kept smiling back at me, as if to say, just relax, and I'm here to protect you. And which is exactly what I felt. And it was a really beautiful feeling of calm and love as well. It was a sensation of love that was really there was more of that to come. And the love that I was feeling was like it was like unconditional love. It was just like all the purest forms of love I'd ever experienced throughout my whole life, whether it's through my lover, my mother and father, brother and sister, or pet cat or whatever. It was all those different types, but it was all there. And it was a lovely feeling. So I decided at that point, well, there's no more pain. I wasn't feeling any pain in my body. So how's it all looking? Because I knew I'd seen how bad it was, pretty ripped up. And I looked down, and there was no wounds whatsoever. I just looked at my arms. My arm had been severed from the elbow down, actually, in the accident. But it was like completely healed, and it was absolutely fine. And so it was at that point I just thought, all right, I'm going to just lie back and enjoy this beautiful peace that I'm in. And then I sensed that there were 2 other beings either side of me, and I opened my eyes again, and I looked, and to my right there was a female form who was like sort of white Caucasian, white European, if you like, sort of long brown hair, I remember, and just wearing again a very simple contemporary brown dress. And her eyes were very bluish green, and the other girl was more American Indian or Asian Indian in appearance, and so were her clothes as well. And both of them had their hands slowly hovering over my body, just healing my body, healing not just the wounds that I'd suffered throughout that accident and the ordeal, but really more like they were healing my soul and healing all the wounds that I'd had throughout my whole life, basically. And yeah, and it was it's a beautiful moment. So again, this sensation of love that was coming from the first being I'd seen was now coming through the hands of these other two, and I just felt like I was being prepared for something. And I thought, where are they sending me? What's going on? But I had no sense of fear at all. So I just allowed the whole thing to unfold. As I lay there, I started thinking about my family, because I knew obviously how distraught they'd been down in the hospital. So I thought they're going to be really pretty, feeling bad now, and I'm going through a real awful time, because obviously I was dead as far as they were concerned. So I decided I'd try and see them. So I thought if I look over to my left, I would probably see them. I don't know why I did, but I did. So I kind of like lifted my head and looked over the side of this huge piece of slate. When I looked down, hoping to see them in the hospital, I didn't. But what I did see then was this immense, beautiful sight. It was like I could only describe it as being like a waterfall, like a Niagara Falls of stars. But instead of being water, it was literally just stars, millions of them just cascading over the edge and just slowly falling through. And it was like, wow, look at that. And it was just tremendous. And I looked down to see as far as I could see. And the further I looked, the more clarity started to appear, and I could see it was disappearing from one galaxy into another. And there were like shooting stars falling through the middle. And then I looked, and I could see colors right down in the middle of this, which were like sort of, but these were a wide span of colors, not like the tiny orbs I've seen. And yeah, so I just kind of remember lifting my head over and thinking, that is incredible. I'm not in a small darkened space at all that I figured that I was in, that I'm actually in the universe itself. And this huge slate of rock that I'm lying on is also floating around up here. So yeah, and I lifted my head away from this beautiful sight, and I suddenly sensed then that this feeling of love that I was talking about was now like a dial had just turned up by tenfold, and the energy was very, very powerful. And I thought, what has happened? It's just like, and what had happened was that I looked again at my feet, and behind the first being of light that I'd seen was a huge tunnel, like a tunnel of white light. And this tunnel was just like slowly coming towards me. And it was like surrounded by all these beautiful colors of like flames. Basically, they were like the flames of fire were slowly rotating around, and I felt no sense of fear whatsoever, just excitement, because the energy that was coming from this was just so powerful. And I just knew straight away that this was the source of all creation. This was God. This was not the image of God that most of us, through whatever our faiths may be, the form isn't normally in a human form, like in Christian faith, like the ceiling of the Vatican, you see God as being a guy with a beard, but it wasn't. This is it. To me, I knew it. This was the source of all creation, was this huge tunnel of light. And the energy coming from the middle was very powerful. It just felt like every molecule of my body was vibrating. I'd describe it. It was just because it was so strong. Yeah. So it was at that point I just remember I lay my head back once more, and I remember I was just filled with laughter, because this was all so brilliant. And and then I went from all this complete sensation of joy and happiness, and to crashing straight back in down to earth. I was back in my body. I was back in the hospital. And the contrast from being in that silence and that peace to all the noise was on overload, and the light was on overload. It was just too much to take. So yeah, so there I was,
plonked back
yeah,
into reality.
Yeah.
And did you there are so many questions, and for anyone that hasn't already read your amazing book, that is kind of skirting over the surface of the experience and describing it. Did you have any sense of coming back for a purpose, or were you told you were going to come back, or were you literally, you were there and it was joyful and then you were back in your body?
I wasn't told anything, but when I say that, in saying that, it was telepathy. Everything that I learned from the other side was through telepathy, and that continued on once I got back, because when I did come crashing back into my body, the first thing I said was, "Why have they sent me back?" You know, I wasn't disappointed, by the way. A lot of people say, "Oh, you must have been really disappointed that they sent you back because it sounded great where you were," you know. But I actually wasn't, because I figured I was still charged with so much positive energy from what had just happened that I was just like, it's almost like, right, let's go. You know, what's the next stage? What do you want me to do? And that was literally what I remember coming, because they wheeled me into theatre pretty much straight away after that, and I was in under anaesthetic for 8 hours while they operated on me. And I remember coming around, and I was they give me my own room in the hospital, which was great, but it was odd because I remember I woke up in the middle of the night as I come around, and I was in that room on my own with just this little machine bleeping like R2-D2 out of Star Wars, you know, and it was just me in the machine. And part of me was obviously now dealing with the actual physical and mental after effects of the accident, because it was so horrific. But the other part of me was also incredibly charged with all this energy, and I just lay there and I thought, what have I got to, what is my purpose? What is my sole purpose now? And I just figured straight away that it was to, first of all, spread the word of what had happened, because I knew nothing about near-death experiences before. I figured at this point that I was the only person that had actually had this happen, because I knew nothing of it. So obviously that's a sense of, wow, that's a big responsibility to come back with that. So I figured straight off that I was going to have to record all this. And I said to myself, right, I'm going to do a huge painting. I'd done nothing like this before, but I wanted to do a huge, like Michelangelo style, you know, Renaissance painting, like the ones you see as you walk through the journey to the Vatican itself, you know, because those tell such huge stories of faith and religion. And I figured that's what I want. And I want people to be able to connect with it as well. So, yeah, so that was my quest, and I knew from the off I was going to do that. So, and I followed it through.
And it's worth saying, I mean, your artwork is just something that is so otherworldly. And as someone who's had a bit of a taste of spirit-inspired art and how it can just take you, and all of a sudden you don't need technique, and because spirit will give you all the instruction you need. It's worth saying at this point that you're not a classically trained artist in any sense of the expression, but you were just driven with this fire from coming back and having this gift and having this experience. You wanted to capture it. So can you talk about your art and kind of how it formed and started, and how it's evolving, and how spirit inspire your artwork?
Sure, yeah. Well, it all started when my sister came to visit me on the very first night. She said, "Can I get you anything?" I said, "Yeah, can you get me a pencil and a small A5 sketch pad?" She went, "Okay." So she thought, "What's he on about?" So, and I sketched it. I got the nurses to prop me up because I couldn't even move, you know, and I've still got this faint little outline of what I wanted to do, because I was scared I was going to forget it all, but I've never have done, of course. So once I was strong enough to be able to start doing a painting, my aunt had come over to visit from Canada, and I told her what I wanted to do. And so she bought me a big canvas. So she got this huge canvas for me, and it just stayed there, lens against the wall. I was recovering at my sister's house for months, you know. And I thought, right, I've got to start this thing. I've got to do it, you know. I was apprehensive, obviously, because I thought I can't mess this up.
Yeah.
And I got no training, so I didn't know where I was going to start. But some friends of my sister's that run a health center, a yoga Pilates center, and they were visiting, and they said, "When are you going to start this painting?" And I said, "Well, I can't do it here. There's not enough light." And they said, "Right, well, we've got an attic space, a studio that's free this week. You can have it. You can use it. You don't have to pay." I said, "Okay." So I went and I started, and do you know what? as soon as I started painting, it's like this whole magic was suddenly appearing before my eyes. You know, I'd literally finish each day and look at it and I'd go, wow, that's remarkable. And I knew then, right from that point, that I was, because I still felt like this cord to the other side. I was still connected very much to the energy that I'd just been through, and I was still receiving telepathy that was educating me, if you like. So I knew that they were educating me, you know, that giving me the knowledge to be able to put this paint onto canvas and be able to do it. And I'd sit back each day and I'd go, wow, look at that. And I'd look up and go, thank you so much. Yeah, I would thank them. And I still do, in fact, whatever I do, I still. So basically, what happened, I'm much aware of what goes on now. And basically, I'm channeling ideas through. So when I'm actually doing these paintings, I don't actually stop and ask them for help. I never ever do that. I just brave myself up and say, right, let's get going on the next piece of work we're going to do. And I start painting, and I just know that they're giving me ideas, that they're teaching me to be brave. You know, it's like when I started doing skin tones, and for me, you know, skin tone is just like mix up one color, like, you know, whatever that color skin is, and that's it. But no, they were like instructing me to say, be brave and stick a bit of blue and a bit of gray or a bit of turquoise on that skin as well. And it's like, and that gave it a new dimension. So all these things had happened, and happy accidents would happen as well. You know, sometimes I just kind of like, I do something by mistake, you know, and I think, oh, what happened there, you know? And I think, no, that's given me the next stage of the painting. So
amazing.
Yeah.
And I must say that your artwork is so organic, in as much as you can obviously tell that it's yours, and because of the experience and the subject matter, but they seem to be evolving or changing, and it's almost like different teachers are coming in, or different influences are influencing you.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Find that happening?
That's very, very true. But I mean, I guess a lot of that is to do with the fact that because I'm not trained, if I was trained, I would just have my own, I would have had one teacher or one or two teachers, and I would have been taught one particular form of painting, and I would have followed that through, and that would have been my style. But you know, but there is something that follows through. You know, interesting. My sister turned around to me today. You know, there's an old black color film on, a Technicolor film of Cleopatra, and the colors were so rich in it. And then we were going, oh, look at this. And then she turned around straight away. She said, oh, it's like one of your paintings. Yeah. So there's a sort of theme of color and this kind of like sense. So I would describe my paintings as being a cross between Renaissance paintings, but also surrealist paintings like Salvador Dali, artists like that, because obviously what I'm painting is they're quite surreal images for people to see, because they are otherworldly. So they can't be just sort of like, I just have one form to them. And I want clarity as well in there. So I want people to be, you know, they're not abstract, because I want people to be able to see the form of the people and the images that are in there, to see what's going on.
It's trying to capture that intangible. So you described my personal favorite is the waterfall of stars, because I think that is beautiful. And when you describe it, it kind of brings tears to your eyes, because you can't even, as you say, with this earthly experience, imagine what that must have been like, just to see that and to have that awareness of being present and not present, and in the universe, and in that giant expanse, and seeing everything that you were seeing. Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you.
Super, thank you. But not only that, not only the experience that you've had, and like you say, being fired up with this purpose to be a real advocate for people, and what I took from it was, as spiritualists and people who primarily are there to comfort people who have lost somebody, and that tends to be why people walk through the doors of a spiritualist church for the first time, unless they're lucky enough to be guided there by spirit. To be able to have such a clear articulation of what actually happens and what happened to you must be such a great source of comfort to so many people, and to be able to advocate for the spirit world in so many different ways, not only with your artwork, but also with your music, which is another thing which is utterly mind-blowing. And I've been listening to the three pieces of music over and over.
Oh, fantastic.
Can you describe your kind of music and how that all came about?
Yeah. Well, it came about initially from I stumbled across the Spiritualist Church. There you go. When I was recovering, and I the first time I went in there, they could tell I was in a pretty bad way, and the service finished, and then one of them said, "Look, we don't normally invite people along because it's just not their form, I guess." But she said, "But you look like you could do with some healing, and we actually do spiritual healing here if you're on Thursday evenings, if you're interested." I said, "Yes." So I went along, and I used to go for spiritual healing every week, which I found to be amazing. I was like astounding the doctors and my consultant. He was going, "You're healing so quick, we can't get our head around it." I said, "That's because I'm having spiritual healing." And he went, "Okay, you couldn't
Okay.
you couldn't do that one." He's a scientist, which is great. Well, I wouldn't be here without science either. So anyhow, so throughout those sessions, like some of the healers would give clairvoyant messages afterwards, because they're also channeling through energy when they're healing, and it's so similar almost to the healing I talked about I was receiving in my near-death experience. So that's hands-on, and they started turning around saying one after another. They'd say, well, 1 week after another, one of them, particular Joy, who was the main healer, said, "I'm picking up a violin across your chest. Why is that?" And I said, "I've no idea." And then she'd say, "I'm picking up Beethoven and Bach and Wagner." I said, "Really?" and stuff. So I'd been a guitarist. I played, when I say a guitarist, I was a 3-chord wonder. I played punk and pop rock and stuff, and that's it. So, and then she turned around and she said, "Well, they're telling me that you're going to write a piece of music about your experience." So I did go home, and I couldn't play guitar anymore because my left arm had been smashed up badly. But I got this old synthesizer, and I pulled that out of the cupboard, and I started trying to write this 3-minute song, which I thought I had to write, and nothing was coming. And then one afternoon, I just sat there watching the TV, and this had played around without even thinking about it. And this little chord progression came, and I thought, that's really lovely. So I recorded it onto a cassette, which is all I got. And I thought, this is great. And I just like the paintings, I knew I was being helped all of a sudden. And I started developing it, and then it became to a point where I thought this really should be played by an orchestra. And I befriended a cello player who used to come along and look at the center where I was painting, because I hastened to add, my friend who said stay for a week ended up saying you can stay for 2 years.
Oh, brilliant.
They loved having me there. People, they called me the artist in the attic. So a cellist came up and got to know me, and we got chatting, and she said, "What have you been up to?" And I told her about this piece of music, and she laughed and said, "Oh, maybe we could perform it." I thought, that would be great. So my brother gave me this package that I could sort of log on not log on, like a software package, external thing for my computer, which meant that I could play the parts that I was doing on my synthesizer, and it would record it into notation. So that's what I did. And then I got it all printed up, and I went along and had a coffee and met up with them. I said, "Here it is. What do you think?" And they said, "Yeah, we'll do it." So they offered to perform it, and it was amazing because the concert itself sold out, because they said to me, "Oh, do you mind doing a few words to the local press just to help boost the program?" I said, "Yeah, of course." So when I spoke to the local press, they knew who I was, because once I started talking, they remembered the incident, because it was all over the papers and stuff at the time, and they loved the story. And then it went from there. It went to a front page, and then it went to others. The phone kept ringing, and then it went to the BBC, wanted to come and film me and stuff. And so it sold out 2 weeks in advance, which was incredible. And it was a beautiful experience. Yeah, just hearing what I'd seen. It was a new dimension to it all. It was giving a different. It was giving, sort of not just a visual dimension of what I'd seen, but I was able to put it through music that people could try and experience it from that format. And the great thing is, obviously, I recorded it. Thankfully, a friend of mine came up. He said, are you recording this?" I said, "No." He said, "You got to record it."
Come on.
And he was working for George Michael at the time. He was like a really good sound engineer. And he said, "Look, I've got some mics. I'll come up and do it." And he just jumped in the car, bless him. And Rory, I owe you one, because now I've got that recorded. Yes, indeed. And so that ended up sort of like being recorded, and so that people like yourself can still hear it now, which is great. And so, yeah, a new dimension to it all.
Wow. and talk about Spirit Inspired, what I'm going to do for everyone who hasn't heard it and who hasn't already been and had a look on David's website, I'm going to attach the SoundCloud link to this page. And do you know what, if you are looking for something to sit in the power to, and I'm a big advocate of sitting in the power, I tried that the other night, and I sat and listened to the first track, the first movement, the first piece of music, and I sat in meditation. And you talk about being in that presence of love, that unconditional love, you can feel it in the music. That first piece of music, you can feel like you're being held somewhere in a place of love. And the second piece has just got a very different feel to it. And you talk about some of the master composers, but it's got a real change of tempo, and the second piece feels just so cinematic, like a conversation that's being had with the spirit world. It's just the most awe-inspiring music. Please do go and listen to it, everybody. It's just amazing.
Thanks.
So we've kind of talked about the art and talked about the music, and I suppose the final piece in this is your amazing book, which is really good. Shine On, which you've had a bit of good news today as well, haven't you, about your your book sales on Amazon?
Oh yeah. Well, that actually came in a few weeks back. Actually, it was a number one bestseller in the UK and the US in its category of near-death experiences and reincarnation. So so very excited about that. So thank you everybody so far who's been out and bought it. You know, it's but everyone's really enjoying reading it. So which is brilliant. You know, because again, it's the whole idea behind this was not really just to go out and make money and sell books from that point of view, but just to spread the word in the same way as the art and the music. So it's yet another dimension, and people are feeling something from it, you know, which is great. You know, people are getting a response that is they're connecting with the whole story and what have you. So it's brilliant.
It's so beautifully written. And I think I said when I spoke to you initially, I was probably someone who was reading a lot into NDEs when I was younger, because I had this spiritual knowing. I was very fortunate to have been born into a spiritualist family, but I kind of wanted to understand the process. And a lot of the NDE material that was around at the time was very medical, was very kind of scientific and kind of based on doctors and kind of taking people's accounts and looking for commonalities, very scientific. The beautiful way that you write yours is you blend so many different elements to it, and you make it it's just such a good account, a very personal account. And so I can see why people are absolutely loving it, and the amount of comfort that it must give to people who have lost loved ones, who have gone to the spirit world, kind of asking how they move and progress, and the reassurance you can give about the amount of love and being free from pain and feeling held and feeling secure and not being frightened for the next stage. I'm really interested in your spirit guide. Would you call that androgynous being that you saw your spirit guide? Have you had any further interactions with them since you've been back?
Oh yeah, I mean, they've been with me throughout basically, and but I also know now that they were with me throughout my whole life, but I just wasn't aware of it. I wasn't able to sort of connect with that or tap into it, you know. So many things that, you know, my life before was complete contrast. You know, it was just like it was going from bad to worse. I'd left school basically without any qualifications, so life was a struggle for me, because, you know, trying to fit in was just tough. And a lot of people face that, you see. So that's I'm not trying to say, oh, poor me. It's just that is it. And so I think that's why an awful lot of people can connect with the book, because they can see that I am basically like a lot of other people. There's nothing different or special about me, and you know, it's just so yeah. But yeah, I'm very aware of that those guides are with me, and the very first one that I saw was, you know, I'm also sense that is my ultimate keeper. You know, that's my higher self, if you like. You know, that's my main source. Yeah. So yeah, my guides are with me, and I call upon them. You know, I do. You know, it's not something that I'm afraid to do, and I try and urge lots of people to do the same. We don't have to. You know, with a lot of faith and a lot of religions, we were almost made to feel that we're I don't know, almost like, not like sinners, but we're almost like, we need to sort of, feel, yes, humble. This is fine. I feel humble when I ask for that help, but that only humble from the point of view that I respect them. Just like if I met somebody in the street who was really kind to me, I would be humble to that person, but I wouldn't be getting on my knees and saying, "Oh, thank you so much." So it's kind of like, yeah, I feel that I can call on them just just for anything, even the smallest thing, like, oh, will you please make sure that I get into town without my car breaking down or whatever. I don't know why I said that, but but it doesn't have to be like a huge dramatic thing that you're asking for help for.
Yeah. And do you know what? That's a really important point. And as Dawna said, she could listen to your story all evening. That I have literally pages and pages of things to talk to you about, because the experience that you had, has it changed how you view your own spirituality and your own sense of self and your connection to God? Has that all changed for you?
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
I didn't really have any connection with God before. As I say, I wasn't aware of my guides. I mean, I just, and I'd say that my life was just kind of like, I describe it as being very linear. I was just skimming the surface all the time, and every time I hit a block, rather than face it and actually address it or allow it to happen, I would just try and make a diversion around it or jump over the top, which led me nowhere basically. And also I was drinking heavily. That was my way of kind of dealing with any pain or anguish or insecurities that I was dealing with in my life. I was just drink, which is a crazy way of dealing with things, because it ended up destroying me basically in the end. And so it's kind of, now I view myself as, I'm still the same person. There's nothing different about me. It's just that I've suddenly, that experience made me realize that I was in touch with my pure soul in its purest form when I was on the other side. All the feelings of anxiety and guilt that were hanging on my shoulders throughout my whole life had gone. I just felt like love for myself. I thought, hang on a sec, I'm okay. There's nothing. I'm not that bad. It's all right. So I'm not that good at bricklaying or whatever it was I was doing at the time. I'm not that good at fitting in with people who are successful. So what, So it's kind of like there was a sense of like I got rid of all that baggage, but I'm still the same person in essence. It's just that I'm more. I don't know. I live more. I realize there that it's important just to live for the moment and to stop, forget about the past. The past is done now, and try not to sort of just be worrying about the future. It's just because we don't know what the future holds or what's happening next. We don't know what's around the corner, even though we think, oh my goodness, this is all going to be a disaster now. We don't know if it is. Let's just stop and enjoy the moment. So yeah.
Wow. My goodness, as you're talking, and as I'm kind of listening to you and reflecting back, some of the things that you're talking about are some of the things, and you've talked about different faiths, but they're the common thread that seems to exist in so many faith paths, aren't they? Be in the now, be in the moment, be accepting of where you are. You can't live in the past, but yet don't be in the future. Just be in the now, just witness the miracles that are around you all of the time.
Absolutely.
And you speak with such gratitude of even down to your, knowing somebody who's in an orchestra and knowing somebody who had a studio that you could rent for a short period of time. Just such gratitude. And really just creating those little miracles around you. It just kind of feels like when you're in that power, when you were being influenced and still had almost one foot in the spirit world, for want of a better way to put it, that you were just open to this, open and trusting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly it. And I rather than trying to strive for things, I was striving for really big, high goals before, and they weren't happening. They just weren't happening. Every door seemed to be closing in my face. Whereas after the near-death experience, I just allowed things to unfold, and there was no end gaining whatsoever. I wasn't kind of thinking, right, I want this concert to sell out. It's got to be, let's work really hard and try and sell as many tickets as possible. It happened, the success of that concert, for example, came to me because I just focused on just creating the source, the piece of music. And if you do that, that's something that I think is really important. Just, stop end gaining, just like get everything, sorted first in its authentic organic source. So that's great that you said that before, that there's something or organic, did you say, about my paintings? And because they are, because they're not, I'm not trying to sell them I wasn't thinking of a market. I wasn't trying to think, right, everybody wants these kinds of paintings at the moment. I thought actually no one probably wants these paintings at the moment, but it doesn't matter. So yeah.
It definitely feels like an expression of trying to capture something.
Yeah.
And the advice that you've just given there for anybody, and it comes up, and I've done a number of these talks now with people, and some of the common questions that come up for people who are on this spiritual pathway and are unfolding their gifts, unfolding their connection to source, to their guides, trying to learn about it. What you've just said really encapsulates all of the advice that's been given so far, which is don't try and push it, just allow to come through what will come through from the spirit world, and just trust, and don't worry about the form of it or the function of it. Just produce it in love and service, and then let it live and go and do its work. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You have answered so many of my questions, and you've spoken so beautifully. Spirit couldn't have chosen a better advocate to try and describe the beauty of the spirit world. So you are a complete gift to us. Thank you so much, David. And if anyone has any questions, I know there has been complete and utter silence on the chat, which is amazing, which means that people have literally been open-mouthed listening to your story.
I hope that's what it is.
No, it is. Believe me. So lovely Sharon is in. Hello, Sharon. And Sharon, I must just say, thank you so much for sending me a message to introduce me to David's book and saying, have you read this chap's account of being in the spirit world, the gifts he's brought back? Life-changing work. Thank you so much, Sharon.
And thanks for me as well, Sharon.
Sharon's a beautiful soul.
Yeah, totally.
Valerie's asking a question to say, David, is that one of your paintings on the wall behind you?
Oh, it is actually, yeah. Yeah, it is one of them, yeah. Sure. They tend to circulate around a bit, yeah. Yeah, that's actually a painting of Kate Moss. I did a series of paintings. It was taken from a line from the Bible, which "Thou shalt not judge," and I think it was. I was going through a period where I was feeling judged because I after the accident I had to go through a lot of legal stuff as well, and I just realised that was really kind of like, especially because I'd just been to this beautiful spirit world, and it was I was suddenly faced with the reality of I don't know, the bureaucracy and the unfairness of the world, so that made me stop. And basically that was the first one I'd done. I'd seen there was some tabloid images of Kate Moss, and they were picking up on her saying, she was a mess, she was doing too many drugs or drinking too much alcohol, whatever. So they captured a photo of her stumbling out of a nightclub, as they said. So I thought, no, I'm going to turn her into an angel. So that's the same image taken from her stumbling, as they say, at the nightclub. But I gave her some Botticelli wings and some cherubs to help her down the steps. And then suddenly people were saying, wow, that's such a beautiful image. And I thought, well, there you go. So I was just trying to say, don't judge. You know what I mean? That beauty was in that. She's a person. She's got a soul. She's done a lot of good things. She's got a beautiful soul. So that's why I did that one. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's a really lovely, and anyone that hasn't checked it out, do go and have a look on David's website. I will put the links underneath for all of the artwork there. It's an entire series of images, and probably one of the most arresting images there is I don't know even how to describe the soul that's reaching forward to feel like you're being helped and reached out to and receiving healing. How would you describe that figure? Because there's almost a kind of a biblical look to them. And I know you described the people you encountered in the spirit world as wearing all different types of clothing. But how would you describe that individual in that painting?
Basically, I wanted to try and put across, the first moments of realizing that I was in an amazing place, and that my connection with the first androgynous being, my guide, if you like, that was watching over me. And it was me. I was that's actually me, sort of my soul turning around to this guide and saying, this is amazing. Where am I? This is just so beautiful. I just wanted to I wanted to take people there, because that was just a really special, unique moment. It was a very intimate moment as well, between just myself and the guide, because at that point I figured there was nothing else. I thought, this is death. This is just me and this guide in this space. But it was beautiful, and it's such a personal sort of painting for me, that one, because it was such a personal moment. So that's what that one is really all about. Yeah. So beautiful. It's just trying to,
yeah, there's so much intensity in that one. It was very much an arresting. You're kind of like scrolling through, and then that one is just so arresting because of the subject matter and because of just that intensity of that moment.
Yeah,
my goodness. So I suppose there are so many people who are healers that I know are on the broadcast. Hello to everybody who's on, who is a spiritual healer or a Reiki healer or working in any kind of healing modality. And I'm really interested in the account that you give of walking in to receive spiritual healing for the first time in your local spiritualist church. Can you was there a similarity? Did you recognize a similarity when you first started receiving spiritual healing in and which is your local spiritualist church? We can give a bit of a shout out.
Yeah. It's St Ives in Cambridgeshire. So it's not the one down south. Yeah, St Ives, Cambridgeshire Spiritualist Church. And it's a beautiful church, and the healers there are amazing. It's just crazy, because I mean, there's hardly any people turn up each week. And I just think this is mad, that people should be queuing around the block, because I still go. Well, I say still, I haven't been for a while because of the COVID. But up until COVID, I was going for each week, and not just really for getting healing. Sometimes I need it, but there are some weeks I just go, because for me, that's my way of sort of reconnecting with the other side, if you like, because I just go into the silence, and I go into that healing, and I go completely into the moment. Then everything around me just disperses, and the energy that comes through from the healers is really powerful nearly every week, and it is as I said earlier, it's very close to the form of healing that I was getting on the other side. Obviously, it was a lot more intense and a lot more vibrant, but because the place in my NDE was just totally, there was no sense of time whatsoever. Whereas here, there's time and there's distractions, and all. But in saying that, when I do have the healing, all those distractions disperse. I mean, for example, there's a boxing gym right next door. You can just across the alleyway, and you can hear them laying into a punch bag. But that disappears. I just forget it's all there, and I'm all of a sudden in this beautiful moment. And I feel really charged. So I always say afterwards, that's like me being plugged into the mains and getting my batteries, rebooted. So yeah, it's fantastic.
You're so right. And you know what, you do feel like you've got the keys to the kingdom the first time that you experience spiritual healing. And you're right, people should be queuing around the block.
Yes.
If they could realize actually the miracles that happen. And we get told over and over again from the spirit world, through clairvoyant messages from the platform or on one-to-one readings or through our own knowledge, that actually the key here is about giving people the opportunity to experience that, to kind of touch the divine through healing, and just feel that power. Amazing. Oh my goodness, thank you so much. If anyone has any I know everyone is kind of saying how wonderful you are. There's so many people who are absolutely loving hearing your story. Amazing. Thanks. Paula is loving your story, and Debbie, who is taking a lot of healing from your story, actually, because of associations maybe in the past, actually with faith, but she's listening to your story with real interest. The lovely Sharon has put an amazing comment. Sharon loves a good comment. Sharon has said, people often say to me, if there's a God, why don't our loved ones come back and visit us? Very interesting. Well, as spiritualists, and not the people watching this broadcast will be spiritualists, will say that we talk to our loved ones regularly. But you're somebody who's physically come back and shared your story. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for everyone that shared this feed as well, to get the word out, really, that this book is available for people to go and read. And you very kindly, you offer the first chapter for people to kind of share your story so that people can learn a bit more about it. So thank you so much. And there's lots of content as well. Your music is on your website for people to go and download as well. And what is coming up next? Are you feeling inspired? Is Spirit giving you any indication of what might be next?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I think what's coming. Well, I'm still sort of like obviously promoting the book at the moment. When I say promoting, it's just helping to get it out into the world and for more and more people to enjoy that. And not only that, it's just talking to people like yourself is great. I'm doing a fair amount of interviewing, and I'm connecting with all these different people from all over the world, and each one has just been really special. It's been fantastic, and it's like, and so so I'm just reaching out from that. That's where I'm at the moment. But yes, Spirit is actually saying to me now that I've got to. Well, I want to put together like a compilation of my music. So and just to get that's going to be the next one to put that out, I think, really, because yes, you can stream the first my piece, the first 3 movements of the Divine Light, it's called, on my website, and please do go and have a listen, and you can listen to that for free. But I'd like to there's a lot more music that I did since I got commissioned afterwards to write various other pieces that I've done for. I've done quite a few that since, and quite a few that are all, they actually asked me to write about Spirit as well. So I got commissioned by this group called the Cambridge Clarinet Choir, and they said, look, we'd like to commission you. So great. So I turned up to the first rehearsal to hear what they sounded like. I'd never heard of a clarinet choir before, and it's a beautiful sound. And they said, the leader of the group turned around and said afterwards, we heard that the piece that we knew about was very spiritual. Would you mind writing another spiritual piece for us? I said, no, I'd be honored, So anyway, so there's various other bits of music but they all need to be sort of tidied up and mastered, and all the different things that need to be done in a studio. So that'll be the next stage, I think, and I'd like to put that together. So
Oh gosh, we really look forward to that. And can you imagine actually just having it together in a compilation? What an amazing body of work. Goodness me, I'm looking forward to that, so I'll stay tuned for that. And it's worth saying that although you said that you kind of were in more of the punk scene, but you can't write musical notation down, so you're not creating your own scores. This is something that you're having to work really hard and trust.
Yeah, exactly. So it's as I say, it's using my computer package that I've still got now. So it's just basically writing with my hands, but I still, I'll turn up to rehearsals and they'll turn, every now and again somebody will turn around and say, David, on bar 52 you've got a C sharp major here, but it's written as an A flat or whatever. I'm kind of going, what? But of course I'm too embarrassed to actually say I don't know what you're talking about. I can't read, because the classical world is it's a very highly educated world, and it's a very sort of middle class world, which is not where I've come from. So it's kind of like, they're lovely people, so they're not judging me, but it's not easy just to sort of go in and say, look, I don't really know what you're talking about. So basically, I'll find a way around. I normally say to them, look, can you play it for me? And once they play the passage, I go, no, this is how it should go, and then I can sing it back. So but that's what music is. That's the essence of music, isn't it? So it doesn't really matter that I can't. So I'm not going to start beating myself up saying I need to start to read music, because it's working. I'm just creating and it's coming through. Yeah.
Gosh, and Spirit are the teachers and Spirit are the guides, and so far, my goodness me, what a gift you are. And just your fearless courage and putting yourself out there, and just so honest. And some people are saying, Teresa and Douglas Lowe has actually said your honesty is overwhelming. When I first heard your story and started reading it and researching about you, I was completely blown away by just how down to earth and honest and open you are about all elements of your experience. So thank you so much for sharing that. Amazing. My goodness. Debbie's just asked one final question. Is that okay if we just ask one final question?
Of course, yeah.
So
I'm in no rush.
Debbie has asked specifically with your music, and it's interesting how music is just such a good vessel for getting across things that we can't articulate. But she's asked what message the spirit world are trying to get across, or was there a message behind each of the different movements for your piece Divine Light?
Well, I think the message is it's a journey, really. I mean, I had no plans how it was all going to evolve at all, and I realized not until the very end that the journey itself was exactly from start to finish of the whole experience. And so I feel that the very last piece is, as you say, it's very cinematic, which is a lovely compliment, but it's also, which is great, because I feel that the ending gives you hope, basically. It gives you hope. And I decided I wanted somebody to sing the final movement. And again, that was probably, the spirit telling me that. So get someone to sing it, because you need some lyrics to explain exactly what you were going through. So that's what I did. And so I was very lucky that I knew that there was a really brilliant tenor singer who lived in Cambridgeshire. And so I was given his number. So I met up with him to see if he could point me somewhere. And he looked at the score and he really loved it. He said, "This is great." And he said, "I'll sing it." So he offered to sing it. And, he's got a voice of an angel. He really has. I mean, and he just came to one rehearsal and he just got it, and that was it. And so yeah, he's beautiful. So I feel that I that's all I can say. That I just think I'm hoping that piece of music from start to finish will take you on the journey that I went on, and I'm hoping that you can feel a sense of what I was feeling throughout the whole trip of it, or not trip, that's the wrong word, the whole journey. I just hope that you get exactly where I was at from the music.
David, it has been an absolute joy to talk to you. And it's been a joy to do the research and to learn about you. And the more I uncovered, the more questions I had, which is just wonderful. So thank you so much for giving your time this evening. And for all the work you do and continue to do for the spirit world as an advocate from the other world, from the spirit realm, for all of the peace and joy and healing that is up there to offer so much comfort and healing for people who are on the earth at the moment, who may be fearful about what happens, actually just to explain what happened to you from your experience. Thank you. Super. Oh my goodness. And thank you for everybody that's been with us this evening, everyone that shared their comments and their love and sending really positive, uplifting comments to David. I'm sure we'll go back afterwards and have a look at all of the comments. And if we didn't get a chance to mention you by name this evening, thank you for being with us. And thank you for everybody who is watching our replay as well. And wherever this broadcast goes, if you know somebody who is struggling at the moment, or someone who needs to hear David's story, then please do make sure that you share it with them so that we can continue to create these waves of light going out from the spirit world, and for David's work to continue doing its work. Thank you, everybody, and have a really lovely weekend. And thank you, David. And I'm sure we will hear and see more of you soon. And I'll put all of the links in the bottom of this post.
Lovely. Oh, that'd be great. So yeah, lovely. Thank you so much.
Super. Thank you, everybody.
Great
Cheerio.
to meet you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.